Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit more about how are we going to configure the DAO and how is this reflected in new stuff that we have to build in the code base. Um, so in order to do that, I don't necessarily want this to be like a canonical walkthrough in the sense that the PR is still a work in progress. So it's not. I mean, you are of course welcome to look around and even review, but it's still not finished. It's more my goal here was more to start to share the knowledge of this Aragon stuff, to share it with you. So maybe you can give me opinions, and you are also more aware of how this works, because I think it will uh, for starters it will uh, facilitate the review when the time comes. I don't know, probably next week. And also it will also make easier for anyone to contribute if they want. Um, and yeah, so yeah, let's start with talking about a bit more about the Security Council, in the sense that this is the things that I'm doing now. They're starting with I'm trying to um, to build some of the tooling that we need to actually do some of the stuff of the Security Council, regarding on how the Security Council is appointed. As you know, Aragon internally it works with voting, something they call the voting application. So, and for example, for this Security Council, how it would be done internally, we would have a token, an internal token. Let's call it the council token or something like that. And basically, this token will only have a supply of, for example, let's say 3 or 5. Okay, and we will distribute these tokens to individual people, which will be the members of the council. And then these people will have to do a voting when they are voting or using the voting application of Aragon. Um, so that's how it would work internally. Of course, there are parameters that we haven't decided, but they are completely configurable, like how many members will this council have, how long the proposal validation will last. Um, yeah, Kieran is asking, how can people be notified of new proposals? So this is something that, in principle, it can be done with any framework that listen to the blockchain and listen for an event. So if you, every time there is a new proposal, there will be a new event. And I think Aragon has it, but I haven't tried it out. But in principle, if there are frameworks out there that let you to listen to specific events and send you an email, or I don't know, send you a message on Discord or something, that can work. I know that there is some third-party project that is trying to integrate Aragon with Discord, for example, which in our particular case, it would be great. Having a channel, a separate channel, for example, or NuCypher DAO channel, and a bot alerting you of potential new proposals and the results, etc. That would be very interesting. But in principle, it's just listening to events. Okay. So I was saying that other things that can be configured is the threshold of this council. So we could require to be for example, 3 out of 3. and that will imply that they will need to have a full quorum, let's say, or they could have 2 out of 3. I don't know. That's something that we need to decide. But regardless, what we do know is that it will have several members, and the problem of how this works internally is that it's this token is controlled by another application of Aragon called the token manager. And this token manager, you can configure it, you can interact with it only individually. So if we want to create the council, or after some time we want to renew the council with some other members, then we will have the problem that we will need one individual action for each member to remove them from the council, and one individual action for each member for each new member, for example. So let's say we have 3 members and we want to remove them and set 3 new ones. That will mean 6 interactions with the token manager. And if you do it in a naive way, that will imply 6 proposals to the DAO. And of course, that's completely, the user experience for that will be awful. And there will be a lot of problems, I'm sure, with people participating in only some of the proposals and some others not. And that would be problematic. So
David, in terms of like permissions of who,
yeah,
of these thresholds and adding and removing people, the Security Council can modify itself in that way, or it's only the parent DAO, or it's both?
We can do it however, in any way we want. So we could do it that only the DAO, and I think the easiest and probably the more transparent and more publicly accepted way is to only the standard, what I will call the standard DAO, the standard voting application, that will be the one that will have the rights to do this. It's the easiest, also the easiest way to do this. But we could also do it that the DAO, that this council DAO itself, not council DAO, it would be at the council voting application, will also have rights to manage itself. But I think in the end, we would need that the standard voting application have powers over the council. That's, at least we need that. So
yeah. So
the security, if we also want to give the Security Council powers to do that, that would be an additional power. So in that sense, the simplest configuration will be to only allow it to the standard voting application. But yes, the council could also be configured to manage itself.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, my sense is I agree with you. That should not be able to do that. It should only be the
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's fine that the Security Council has. Oh, by the way, I think with the time, with the passing of time, I've been hating more this name of Security Council. So if you have a suggestion on an alternative for it, I think. I don't know who likes this actually, so, but let's continue calling it Security Council for the time being. So I lost track what I was saying. Oh yeah, I lost track. Anyway, yeah. So I was saying that the problem that I'm trying to solve first, in this PR, the one which I'm working now, it's how to deal with the Security Council, in the sense that if we want to appoint it, ideally, I think it would need to be in one single proposal. So that's something that Aragon supports it, and it's very cool actually. But the thing is that they don't have many tooling for doing this. So, and also all the tooling that they have, it's in JavaScript. So in the end, we need to, I had to build something for us basically. And, but it's actually very cool because it uses some of the complex features of how Aragon is done, and that we will need them, we will have to use them at any point in any case. So I think this, the Security Council thing is like a very good candidate for starting to think about how to integrate with this part of Aragon. And okay, let me just show you. Let me share the screen. Okay, can you give me permissions to share screen?
Yeah. All right, you should be good now.
Okay. I'm already sharing my screen.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, do you see my Chrome?
No, I just see a bunch of file explorers.
Let me try again. Does that work now?
No, same problem.
What do you see?
Just a bunch of like file explorers.
It says that I'm sharing my Chrome, the browser. Try again. Oh, is this better?
Yep.
Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so this is going to be part of the real we. I probably is the first PR. So, well, I'm going to review very fast the commits. Oh, let me refresh. Okay. Yeah. So one of the first things that I wanted to show is how Aragon internally does these things that allows you to interact, or allows the voting, not the voting, the applications they have in their ecosystem to interact with each other. So they have this concept of forwarding, which basically allows to produce like a call to a security, to a call to a smart contract, and pass this call through some application. So for example, one typical example, let me open the DAO. Maybe it will clarify things. No, where's the DAO? Yeah. So if you see the DAO and if you check out the permissions, you will see that, for example, we have the permission of the agent for executing actions. Okay. So right now in the IDEX DAO, we don't have it fully configured, and we have that the actions for the agent are assigned, not the actions, sorry, the role, the permission for executing actions of the agent is assigned to this address. Right now, this is my address because this is the address that I was using when configuring the DAO, and I didn't continue the configuration. But ideally, instead of this, it will be assigned to the voting application. That means that every time you want to execute an action on the agent, you need to go through the voting application because the voting application needs to be the caller of the agent. Right now, the permission is assigned to me, which means that I need to be the caller of the agent. So they have this way of apps interacting to each other in such a way that some apps are assigned the permissions to interact with each other. For example, voting. On voting, you see that to create a new vote, the permission to create a new vote is assigned to this application called the voting aggregator. And the voting aggregator, it's actually what interfaces with our staking escrow contract, which means that if anyone that wants to create a new vote proposal, for example, actually it's not interacting directly with the voting application, but they are interacting directly with the voting aggregator. And the voting aggregator will forward the call to the voting application, for example. In the case of the agent, it will be something similar. So imagine that it's not assigned to me, but it's assigned to the voting application. Then anyone wanting to execute an action will need to forward the action first through the voting application and then to the agent. So they do this by let me go back. Yeah, they do this by using this interface. Not every, but most of their applications have a forwarder. They implement this forwarder interface. And the interesting method in the forwarder interface is this forward method that basically allows you to pass some bytes, which are actually call data, which means they are a call to some smart contract method, and it's encoded in bytes. But they do this in some mechanism they call an EVM call script. I don't know if this is something that it's for any other project, but I think this is for Aragon only. And an EVM call script is basically just a list of pairs, and each pair is just a target address and a call data. So basically, it allows you to create a script, let's say, of many calls to many potential targets, and just bundle everything in one byte string. And you could do several transactions, or you could do the things that you will normally do in several transactions. You could do it in one single script, and hence in one single transaction. Okay, so this is the interface, and we are including now this interface in our code base because we need to use it. So this is, for example, one of the things that I'm not completely sure how to do in our code bases, because we have never we haven't worked with interfaces that much. So that's something that, for example, I would probably want some opinions on or suggestions here. Okay. Oh, I forgot also. And the token manager also has an interface. Of course, the token manager is a smart contract with many methods and a lot of code that we don't want to include in our code base. We are only interested in the important methods for us, which are, for example, these 4 methods that deal explicitly with assigning or creating or destroying tokens. And this is what we will do for the Security Council. In fact, what we will do is mint new tokens for the new members and burn the tokens that belong to old members. That's what we'll do. So this is the first steps of what I'm doing for the logic that creates those scripts that I was telling you about before. And okay, this is not very relevant. Going into detail.
Quick question: if we wanted to, like, if the DAO decided it wanted to permanently disband the Security Council, is there a way to do that, or is it just you basically just burn all the council tokens one by one?
Second, if the DAO decides to what?
If there was some decision by the DAO to basically disband the council,
yeah,
is there? Would you just essentially just burn all of the tokens, or is there some other way that you would do that?
Well, yeah, I mean, we could potentially burn all the tokens, or we could just remove the permissions from the DAO. So maybe that's even easier to just remove the permission from the DAO for the Security Council itself, which is, as I said, so how the Security Council is related to the agent, for example. So right now, the power to execute actions of the agent belongs, for example, in this test DAO belongs only to me, but in the real configuration, it will belong to the voting application, which is the standard application, and would also belong to a second voting application, which is the DAO, which is the Security Council DAO. I think I had this other DAO that I was exploring before. You can see this this other DAO. I don't know why I can't open. Yeah. Do you see that the actions of this agent, the permissions to execute actions of the agent are assigned to two voting applications. One of them is called the standard validation, and one of them is called the emergency track validation. This was a DAO that I configured when we were thinking about the emergency track, if you remember. From the perspective of the DAO itself, it's exactly the same type of configuration, only that in the emergency track solution, any staker will have will be able to validate, while in the council solution, only the council members will be able to validate. But from the perspective of how the permissions are configured, it's the same. Those are two voting applications. They have a different name, but it's important to note that this name is only local. The Aragon user interface has this thing called labels, where you can assign a new name for something, but this is only for my browser. So if you open this, I will paste the link. I'm pasting the link on general. If you open this and you go to permissions, you will see that these names are not there. You will see you will probably see voting, and you will see voting twice, I think, here, which is the default name of the voting application. So don't get confused of these names, because these names are only local. Anyway. Okay. So yeah, so to answer your question, what we would do, for example, one of the easiest way to disband the Security Council would be just to remove permissions to this. For example, we will say, imagine it doesn't say emergency track, but it says Security Council. We will remove this permission. But if you see this last column here, it says that these permissions are managed by the standard validation. So in order for us to approve or yeah, to approve this removal of permissions, we will have to do a voting. But yes, this is a mechanism for the standard for the whole community to, for example, get rid of the Security Council. It will be just to remove the permission. It's probably the easiest way. Okay. So yeah, this commit is just an initial work on how to create these scripts. It's not very interesting for us right now. This is also more uninteresting thing for us right now. Yeah, this is something that it's a bit more interesting, and I would like some opinions here. I think I already talked about this with Kieran, and I think I didn't. I'm not completely satisfied with this solution, the solution I have here. So the thing is that we are when integrating with Aragon, this is like a new context right now for us, because all our contracts, we have the full code base, and we are the only ones that deploy them. We have the registries. We have we control everything about the contracts so far. But for the Aragon contracts, that's not the case anymore. The contracts are not deployed by us directly, and they already exist. For example, I can create the DAO. I could create the DAO right now, and the DAO will exist on its own. It's separated from the code base. So we need to interact with them, and this is something that the agent layer that we have right now, it's not completely it's not thought for that use. Another issue or yeah, problem that we had is that in a lot of cases we don't want to interact directly with these applications. For example, the token manager. For the token manager, we will probably have the permissions for minting or for issuing or for assigning, you know, for the methods that deal with tokens. We will give these permissions only to the voting application. Basically, that for the DAO community itself, which means that it doesn't make any sense to build an agent that interacts directly with the token manager, because it will not happen like that. The way it will happen is that we will have to go through the voting application to create a call that interacts with the token manager. So there is like a level of indirection. It's kind of like a proxy pattern, but it's not exactly like that, because it's it uses this forwarding interface. So in many cases, the thing that we want in the code base is some way to translate. That's the metaphor I'm working right now, but I'm not fully convinced about it. Is we want to translate between the smart contract signature to smart contract methods to the Python methods that we use in the code base. So this is like this is very similar to an agent, but the agent is more opinionated. It's a more opinionated layer, in the sense that the agents not only translate, let's say, between Python and Solidity, but they also use the method. For example, they will do calls, or they will do transactions. But in this case, I'm not interested in this last part. I'm just interested in the translation between the Python method and the Solidity method. So this concept of translator is very similar to an agent, but it's much lightweight. This is another part where I would like to have opinions, because I don't know how this can be integrated perhaps with the agents. I talked about this with Kieran, but I think we didn't find like a proper solution for this. But for the moment, I'm going with this. Okay. This is, let me see the message. Yeah, not very relevant. Okay. Yeah, another, so one of the next steps is to introduce a new DAO command. So basically what we will do is have extend the NuCypher command to also have the functionalities to interact with the DAO. So in principle, we will have stuff like ways to inspect the information about the DAO and to make proposals or validate proposals. So yeah, this is just an empty skeleton for that. And I'm starting these days to populate it. So this is, for example, how the interface for the voting application actually looks like. The voting application does a lot of things, but I tried to organize this so you can see that they are grouped by functionality. So this is, for example, the way for how you create new votes, like you make new proposals. And these are the methods for actually voting. And these are like for executing a vote that passed. These are the things that we will try to connect with our code base and with our command, with our new NuCypher DAO command. And I think I stopped here, but I stopped here because I started to have a lot of questions and things that I need to think about and have your opinion is. So I created a new we already have the token manager. Sorry. Okay, so we already have the token manager, smart contract or interface contract. We have in one of the previous commits I showed the immediate next layer, which I call the token manager translator, which just translates from Solidity to Python, let's say, and it will only give you, it would not interact with the token manager. It would also translate. And then I'm using this token manager translator in this new actor, which is, it's like the next layer of abstraction. And I called it the Security Council Manager. And this is also subject to a potential name change. And all that, everything that I explained before about how to propose a new set of members, it's you can see it in very high level here in this method of this actor called rotate council member. So you'll see that you have here all the members that are going out and the members that are going in the Security Council. And apart from some checks that we need to do, it's pretty simple. Basically, we will have the token manager. For each member out, we will burn one of their tokens, because this token, you only need one of them to be part of the council. And for every member that is going in the Security Council, you will meet a new one. So now we have these two arrays. We just bundle everything, and with this code here, I'm just encoding this in this call script format that Aragon uses. And once this is done, we will forward this to the voting agent. So this is the way of creating a voting. No, not creating a voting, of proposing a change in the council. In the end, it will have to be forwarded through the voting application. So yeah, basically this is just the first steps, but this of course it makes me to start to think about new stuff that I need to build, and I haven't built anything for this yet. Is, for example, we need to deal with an agent for voting, which also follows the forward interface. In fact, I'm not sure if even if we need a second layer of interaction, because I'm starting to remember that we don't interact directly with the voting application either. We interact with the voting aggregator, which it's another one of the applications that I told you before. So this thing may be a little bit more complex than this. But anyway, but we will probably need to create an agent, or at least a translator, for the voting application. We will need to create an agent for the voting aggregator. We will need to create, and this is the part that I am more concerned about, this second point. We will need to create a registry for the DAO contracts. And one of the problems with this registry is that, first, we don't have the ABI. Of course, we can copy the code and compile it and extract the ABI, but I think we maybe need a better way to solve this. And another problem is that for the same type of contract, we will have, in some cases, two or more instances of the same contract, but doing different things. So, for example, the voting contract. The voting contract will be used twice. One for the standard voting, for the regular proposals for the DAO, and another one will be for the council. And this is something also that our registry is not thought for that either. So we need also a way of encoding this in some registry. So yeah, this is another part that I would also like to have opinions. And of course, we will need to produce tests for everything, and ideally mocking a lot of the things that belong to the DAO domain, which is also actually a lot of work. So basically, with this walkthrough, I wanted to give you like an idea of the things that I'm starting to work on, but also potential areas of help, areas where help is wanted. And if anyone has questions or comments that about anything about I explained, I would be very happy to discuss, because I don't want to work on this alone and then present some results and maybe have to to fight about the decisions. I actually much prefer to have this more concentrated with, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 other people. That's why I already talked to Vicky and Derek, which I think unfortunately none of them are here right now, but it doesn't matter. I already talked to them to if I could consult with them about some decisions of the PR, or if they want to participate, or if they want to review earlier. But I just talked to them because I wanted to ensure at least I had 2 other people to talk to. But of course, anyone is invited to this. So yeah, that's the purpose of this walkthrough. So if you have any question or something, just let me know.
One question I have that you didn't explain is
yes,
how you have so many tabs open.
Yeah, Derek was had the same question last time. I don't know. I just forget about them until Chrome crashes.
You just know the icon for everything that you need, I guess. It's a lot. All right. All right. Well, there's a lot to digest in there.
Yes.
So I don't know if I have very specific questions. I'm sure I can come up with some as usual. Wow. I mean,
Yeah, I understand. I mean, by no means it means that you need to give me opinions now. I just
Yeah.
want to, tease you, and if this, I don't know, interests you some way, or maybe you hate something, I think early is better than later. To make comments and let me know. You don't have to be constructive. If there's something that you don't like, just let me know, and we can work through it.
There's a bit of like a fragility around the names, I think, but you've already, you sort of mentioned that already as you spoke about it.
I'm completely aware. Please feel free to suggest alternatives. I'm not very convinced that it's easy to find some names here. But yeah, that they can be improved for sure.
Mm-hmm. It seems pretty involved, like, for someone to be on the emergency, like, councils, I guess. It's quite a bit of contract interaction and like hardware wall interaction, and like being sort of available for voting at any moment.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I think we have also talked in the past. In the end, if when everything works, the Security Council members will only need to go through the user interface from Aragon.
True.
And click yes on some.
Kind of a related question. There's a trend, especially like in some of these DeFi, like compounding protocols and stuff, of building voting UIs. Like, does Aragon provide a way for third parties or us to build a voting UI?
Well, I don't know about UI, but I mean, sure, you can do it completely, because it's just a smart contract, so you can just interface with it in any way you want. In fact, one of the things that I plan to do, I think it's one of the previous commits, it's to vote through the CLI, to validate proposals through the CLI.
So that's something that's 100% achievable in JavaScript land, and probably belongs there, because that's going to be the easiest way, I think, for the general participation to.
Sure. Sure, but I think that the cost of doing this is very small, and having this alternative, it's
of course.
probably it's more robust, and the cost is very small because it. Let me show you.
I'm more comfortable with what you're proposing. I do the same thing all over the code base. It's more of a reliable, like, core implementation, and then
so basically, if you see in this file, in the voting interface, line 30, function vote, this is basically the only thing that you need to validate a proposal, is to interact here and say in this Boolean yes or no. So, and of course you will need the ID of the proposal itself, but I mean, this is very simple to do. So doing this from the CLI, the cost of doing that is extremely small. And what it would be very difficult for, at least for me, it would be to do an alternate user interface.
Yeah, I mean, with the right tool chain and when you're in the right mentality and stuff, those JavaScript tools are running circles around our Python tools on a regular basis. So it's totally doable.
Sure. I mean, this is, in the end, this would be just like any other DApp. We have a smart contract, and you can create a web application that interfaces with this. But I never done develop a DApp.
Obviously outside the scope of this PR. I'm looking way ahead. I'm just thinking.
Sure. But yeah, for regard to your concern, yes, it's pretty easy to interface with this to create a new interface for this. Even a more specific interface for this, like for the NuCypher DAO. So we could potentially create a website that is for,
vote.nucypher.com.
yeah, exactly. And you can, it will be specifically done for NuCypher. And probably it will work better than the Aragon user interface, which it's general. It needs to be general, but we don't need to, we don't need that.
I like that sort of multiple entry point strategy. It's very redundant.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. It's almost like it's very similar to an agent. What you have going on the AP, the Python API level.
Yes.
There's some differences, but you know, at the core of it, you're wrapping smart contract functionality at the lowest level, and you know, where is it composed right now? NuCypher, blockchain, ETH, Argon. Okay.
Yeah, that's another thing. I'm not satisfied at all where I have been putting some of this stuff. Maybe it belongs to some other specific places or some new. I don't know. So but I didn't want to stop because of that. I was going to show you something here.
Very clean work here. That's good.
Oh yeah. So you were saying that it's very similar to agents, and I have tried to enrich a little bit some of the comments, some of the commits with kind of opinions or explanations. And yeah, here I'm saying explicitly that these translators are like agents, but,
Right.
but yeah, they don't know what to do next with the functions.
It certainly doesn't help that one of the things we're interacting with is also called agent.
Yeah, I think I would try to call that DAO agent.
The agent. Yeah, of course.
Agent,
Yeah, of course.
yeah.
No.
So are there any more questions? Because if there are not, something that I can go real quick is about the completely unrelated to the DAO stuff, with the gas strategies thing that I was.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So are there any more questions about this? Okay, so let's go to the. I open up this PR 2154. Yeah.
Changing the definition of fast, or how to do this?
Yeah, it's been a little bit how to say, organic, this PR, because that was actually my only goals when I started this PR was to change the strategy to fast. And when the CLI starts and the blockchain is connected, I just wanted to print in the logs what is the current price. But just with that very modest goal, I discovered that it wasn't working properly. The gas strategies were not working, or they weren't working as expected. So the first thing is changing this to fast. I've been doing some playing with DeFi stuff lately, and I've noticed that if you don't actually use like fast gas price according to gas station, you can be waiting for 5 or 10 minutes for your even if standard prices or medium prices should be fine for, like, in principle, like a couple of minutes, but in the end it's not.
Actually, I did a serious issue last 2 weeks ago now, just playing around with some of those DeFi protocols with like petty cash, of course, but and discovered that I had stuck transactions for more than 20 hours or something, and I had to issue multiple refunds. Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, if your tooling is not aware of this and you continue interacting, the problem gets worse because you can get more transactions stuck. And so in the end, one of the ways to prevent this is try to use some high gas price from the start, and that may at least give you some assurance that everything will go smoothlier. I don't know if that's a word.
Smoother, more smoothly.
More smoothly, yeah. Okay, yeah, there were some small bugs here in the logic. So I created also a test that was failing and I changed it in order to pass. Nothing very important. Okay, yeah, this is the thing that I wanted to do initially, just to print the gas price. And yeah, I realized that the prices were not right, because they were still a little bit low. So even if you set a fast, the thing is that when we are setting these gas strategies, these are the Web3 gas strategies, which actually they just have some arbitrary methods that compute different configurations of gas prices, and but that's it. And the thing is, I used this fast, and it still wasn't for example, for the ETH gas station standards, they weren't fast enough. So this could be a problem for application for users. And another problem was that I'm like, from the last 2 months, I've been only using Infura every day. And I realized that if you use the Web3 gas strategies with Infura, it takes like 1 minute or 1 minute or and a half just to get you the price. Because if you check out the code of how the gas strategies work, they basically need to retrieve 2 blocks of the blockchain, but they need to retrieve 2 blocks full, not only the headers, but all the transactions, because they need to parse the gas prices for each transaction. So it's a lot of information that needs to go through Infura. So I thought, okay, we need probably to do something better, and not better, but something faster. So I had this first pass at this at Oracle's module. At some moment we will need to integrate with Oracle's of some way, and this is a good candidate, because gas prices is not something that is very critical. That you don't need to have gas prices to be fully decentralized, sourced. I mean, I don't mind if for my particular client, if I'm already running Infura, I may as well also have the gas price from somewhere else, right? So I created this very simple and still very stupidly coded module for oracles and for Ethereum gas prices oracles. And basically, I created at least 2 sources. One of them is Etherchain, because ETH gas station needs an API key, which I don't want to get one. So Etherchain seems to be open, and Upbest seems to be open. I asked Michael, and he told me Upbest seems to be working fine. But I was playing with both of them, and yeah, one of the things that I realized is that there is no standard on how on these speeds, in the sense that maybe the fast in Etherchain is fastest that the fast in Upbest, and also it's fastest that the fast in Web3. So it can be very confusing for a user, because they will think, I just need my transaction to go fast. But fast depends on if you're using Web3 or if you're using Upbest or if you're using Etherchain. So that's an user experience problem that I'm not trying to solve in this PR. I just played with all of them and realized that Etherchain shows you the highest prices, which I consider those the safest. So what I did, I think in one of the next commits, it's get this like created, bundled everything in a Web3 gas strategy, which actually goes through Etherchain and Upbest. And you go through Etherchain, and if there is some error, then it will go through Upbest. It can be extensible for other. I haven't built it for extensibility yet, but I mean, you get the idea that this can be easily extended in the future. And in the worst case scenario, if you can't get anything from the oracles, you will use the bundle RPC gas price strategy, which basically is just going to your Ethereum node and ask for a gas price, which is always like a medium speed price. So it would probably be relatively slow. But I mean, that at least that's something like a worst case scenario fallback option. Yeah, I think nothing. Yeah, and basically what I did here is if you're using Infura, then don't use the gas strategy, the Web3 gas strategy, but use this Oracle-based gas prices. And that's it. And using this, yeah, I just changed some login here, nothing very relevant. And this was actually a bug that it could be potentially difficult to track. So I'm very happy that we detected this now. Is that we were explicitly, it didn't matter that we were using a gas strategy, because right at the moment where we constructed the transactions, we were explicitly using the default gas price by the Ethereum node, which is this call to gas price. So I just got rid of that. So now we are using the gas strategy that it's configured to do. And yeah, and doing this, I deployed some contract on real mainnet, and it worked smoothly. So yeah, this PR is just to improve a little bit some gas strategy logic that actually we haven't tested. We never tested before, and I think now it works better. But this Oracle thing, maybe I need to improve it a bit. It's just a first pass to have it working, but I will want to have it like more robust and more resilient. And yeah, basically that's it. I don't know if you have also questions on this.
To what extent have you actually tried using this?
Again?
To what extent have you actually used it?
I use it on Ethereum mainnet to deploy a contract.
Cool.
And it worked. So I tried to do it a couple of times before, and in the end I never I always rejected the transaction with the hardware wallet because I checked that the prices weren't right. So
this is a good iteration, basically, because we can sort of accept that we need to optimize gas usage a little bit, but everybody can still just use the fast gas strategy, like no matter what character you are at this time. Does that like sit well with you? And like additionally in the future, do you think that Ursulas need to behave differently with gas strategy as compared to, say, stakers?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part.
Like, do you think that there need to be like character optimized gas strategies?
I don't know. I mean, some of the things that I as an Ethereum user have experienced is having your transaction stuck because gas prices because your client software didn't compute your gas prices correctly. In my case, it was with MetaMask, and for something I remember when gas prices were way cheaper, even on that moment where gas prices were cheaper and far less volatile, I had sometimes MetaMask would choose very slow gas prices because maybe it didn't like refresh the gas prices or something. I also, I don't know how they compute the gas prices. I think they use it gas station, but I really don't know. I really don't know how they.
I think a useful metric is going to be how much is my Ursula costing me in network fees.
Yeah, but the thing is that what I was saying is that I as an Ethereum user, I'm very scared of having your transaction stuck because I think I don't think.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm not actually making a rebuttal to using a high price all the time. I think we defer that to the user ultimately, but let the default be a high strategy.
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
just wondering, like, if there's an easy way to extract like the metric. Like my node has been up for 20 days, and on average, it's costing me this much per day.
Wow, I mean, that's. But are you saying like having some statistics on the past?
I think what my motive was really sourced by somebody asking, how much does it cost to run an Ursula node?
Right. But the thing is, you never know because I remember having this conversation or doing some calculations back in SF, and I remember thinking naively, very naively of me, thinking, yeah, for a transaction, 20 gigaway, it's more than enough for having a transaction passing. And I'm checking right now, the standard gas price is 87. And I remember yesterday, they were like 110 or something like that. So you never know. We know that we actually, we are even not fully secure, fully, we don't know for sure what's going to be the cost of your next commitment, for example, because it depends on if you committed the past period and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So
of course it changes period to period, but you historically it's knowable, factual even.
Yeah. So basically, let's say it's around 200K gas, but the problem is that gas prices are not. You cannot predict at all how what's the gas price.
I understand that, but you can still give the user it's not you can't do like a regression to like predict the future like with any reliability, but you can still say like this is what my Ursula has cost me,
Yeah, I guess you can do that. And in any case, this PR is not changing the configurability of gas strategies. Although right now, if you're using Infura, right now with the last change that I did, if you're using Infura, it will use the Oracle, no matter what. So maybe I would have to change this and make it better because it's removing the control from the user. But yeah.
So if I submit right now, I'm trying to see what the last estimate gas script was, just for some shot in the dark. 109,515. How much is that worth? Heath gas station.
And I don't know. I when gas prices were around 30 or 40, I thought that okay, these prices can go higher, and now they are every day on 60, 70, 80. And I don't think there's going to be a resistance in the next weeks because it seems it's getting higher and higher.
So that costs 0.0145 ETH.
But one of the things that you can start to do with this PR is that you have this abstract Oracle class, and I put a comment here at some place and it's related to one comment that you did, Kieran.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's $4 to confirm activity according to this one script.
$4. So imagine that it's like 1,000 or no, it's like 1,200 per year with these prices. But yeah, we got it's the thing I said here. This is actually a comment from you, Kieran, that you created on. You wrote this comment on blockchain interface that we can use.
Wow.
We can use Ethereum and USD oracles to to get actual dollars.
That's
actual
amazing
dollars.
to see that there's code that came out of that comment. Thank you.
Hey, just a quick comment on estimating Ursula costs.
Yes.
I actually think that we do need to provide estimations to our stakers, like for example, like, I don't know, using the 100-day moving average of gas prices, how that translates into what you must spend to confirm activity or other important duties, with obviously a lot of caveats about how it's highly variable. And for example, going into the level of detail where we're saying, okay, well, if you're willing to wait 20 minutes to confirm activity, which I can't see a reason why you wouldn't want to do that, then it would be cheap. There'll be X amount cheaper. And the reason that I think we need to do that, even though it is probably going to have a lot of errors in it, is because we ultimately are enforcing a pricing range, which we have to decide. Of course, it can change through governance, which relates to the first part of this discussion. But we still need to start with some anchoring constraints. Yeah, and so I think it sort of behooves us to relate those fees. I've got a lot of notes on this, which I'm going to make a PR soon for the documentation, so you'll be able to see like specifically what I'm referring to in terms of like the absolute figures. But yeah, just quickly, that it's like, I think we have to put it in the context of what we expect them to spend, and we can still say that might be wrong. Yeah,
you're completely right. And this is in fact related to the comment from Kieran before of this is something that can be character based or configurable by each character. For example, for the specific case of committing for a new period, if your Ursula is running normally, you will have approximately 24 hours to confirm for the next period. So in principle, you could use a slow gas price, and even, I mean, we could try to improve our logic there. For example, we could have the Ursula node to use even a very low gas price, something that on average will.
Yeah, now we're talking about like tweaking and tuning knobs, and like we're starting to tiptoe into premature optimization. But I'm still looking forward. I totally hear you. That needs to be understood. Not only there are multiple parts of risk that are involved there. It's like a triangle,
Yeah. I mean, with these gas prices, we don't. I'm actually right now this PR is very opinionated in the sense that it's forcing, not necessarily forcing, because we always give the chance to change, but we always know that the defaults are very powerful. And if we put fast here, it would mean that 99% of the users will use the fast because they won't change the default.
If you use fast, you're reducing your risk of being slashed.
Sure, but we could also be like smarter. We could have a smarter code that, for example, use a gas price that on average will give your transaction confirmed in 6 or 8 hours, for example. So you still have more than 12 hours to get your transaction confirmed. And if don't, then maybe you can resend your transaction with a higher gas price. So that's definitely riskier, but maybe it's something that will give stakers much smaller, much lower prices, lower costs. And
At some point, yeah, it's going to be required even.
Second?
I think at some point that's going to be required, because imagine that suddenly there's okay, say gas prices are pretty low, and then suddenly there's an explosion of gas price.
Yeah.
And now all of these Ursulas can't confirm activity, and they just stack up and no one can confirm, and we're triggering a wave of slashing events the following day.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically describing another problem with confirm activity as it links to punishments. But I think it's worth pointing out that in the early eras, slashing is practically just a nominal amount, right? A measurable amount.
This is the observations you need to make on it, in fact. But yeah, totally.
By the way,
so when we change that, we have to take into account what you just described. Absolutely.
Related to this, I was playing with LivePeer staking last year, and I just put like $50 on. I bought like $50 worth of LPT, and I staked it. And the other day, I went back to the interface because I completely forgot about it for, I don't know, for 9 months or something. I completely forgot about it. And I went the other day, and if I want to claim it, or if I want to do anything with those, I need to perform 7 transactions, each of them costing me like $44. So it's, I don't know.
Oh my God.
7 by multiplied by 44. I haven't had enough coffee to do that math, but like, I don't know, it's like $300 just for claiming, because they the way LivePeer works, the stakers have to do something they have to do a manual claiming or a manual operation every 100 days. And because I forgot about it for so long, and I only have, I don't know, like I bought like $50, and because of the token price, maybe I have like $20 right now. So it's not worth for me at all. But what I'm trying to say is that gas prices are very important here, because when I did this initially, I remember the gas prices were like 3 gig away, 5 gig away, not 90 gig away. This is not, I mean, staking right now, for example, being a small staker, or well, I was extremely small in LivePeer, of course, but even if I have, I don't know, if I had like $1,000 or 2,000, I would be pissed to spend 300 or 400 bucks on just making some calculations. So I completely see your point, Arjun, because we need to build our stuff smarter. So I think there are ways to improve the cost for Ursulas, and 2, for informing them. At least we know for sure, or not for sure, but a very good estimate on the gas cost, but in gas. And that's one of the things that it's built in our CI. So every time we run a pull request, we know how many gas we spend on commit. Yeah, on commit for new period. But the problem is the gas prices, and yeah, that's an analysis that depends on on the gas market, which it's very tricky.
Just a couple quick points, which is I also have been looking at LivePeer. They've been sort of recently developing their pricing models, obviously some time after launching, and they're running into various difficulties of estimating how much it costs to run transcoding in parallel, or the different hardware, etc. Something we're fortunate enough to not have to think about too much. Their latest model doesn't talk about gas costs, which is quite surprising given what you just told me, that it is actually a significant burden. The other point I would make is that we can assume a cost of gas that's reasonable, maybe like some kind of regressor. And then if there are explosions, that's just out of our hands with respect to our pricing model, right? And usually those are quite temporary. So I agree that we have to be aware of that, but I don't think we should get hung up on some kind of optimization that accounts for like random explosions in gas prices. That's just too difficult. But we basically agree, of course, anything that's cheaper is better, right? We know that. And then, so the final thing would just be that I'm not raising this as to say, okay, this is necessarily a problem. It's more that on one side we have the costs of running an Ursula, and then the side that I've been much more focused on thus far in developing like the fee range rationale is like the market rates and what it means to be competitive or actually viably usable. You guys saw some of these notes I sent a few months ago, which was looking at the market. I'm just trying to formalize those now into like something for the documentation, and maybe something like a sort of supplementary paper if people are interested in understanding why we chose to have a range and why we chose the width of the range and why we chose the numbers for that range. But the bit that's missing, and the reason I brought it up just now, is I need probably some help really analytically estimating the supply side costs. And we can certainly do that within the team. I would love anyone who wants to spend a bit of time thinking about this. I remember like Damon was super interested in estimating the costs a while ago. I was also thinking,
we were far more equipped to do it now. We have nodes running that are running in time series databases that are collecting myriad of information about those nodes, and they can be queried from an SQL database for like any sort of time series data that we want. So we could add a probe for actual spent cost on various transactions and shove those into the time series, and you get the results that you need. It's actually not that hard from where we are now.
That's awesome.
One thing we don't know is what the actual cost will be running a mainnet node. I mean, right now, Infura is not an option to reliably run a node.
Why?
Although it is, right? But not for more than one Ursula.
That's true. It might be fine with one Ursula, but I mean, the thing is, sometimes you lose a confirm activity because your Infura quota ran out. And if you're doing any NuCypher stake list or any other commands anywhere using that same Infura account, then that uses up your quota also, and your nodes might go down. You know, like it's kind of I wouldn't advise it.
There's different backends for different solutions. You know, I actually am warming back up to Alchemy. They have much higher quota limits, and they're used for like, real widespread DApp usage. For example, we could use that as like the default provider for like status commands. People wouldn't even have to bring their own node. They could just run it and they'd hit our Alchemy.
We really should try to get like a workable, I mean, I don't know if we even are, like, is Infura a thing that we want to promote usage of? Like, it's not really
decent. But not promote, I think. You know, the modularity is kind of what's important. It's a popular tool now, but it won't always be.
But Damon, the problems you mentioned is when you are using the same account for more than one node?
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I've been running a lot of nodes, and not only that, but I've been doing a lot of, stake activities locally. And once I did, like if I just let it all sit there, it actually does. Like I've had 5 nodes confirming activity every day on one Infura account. Although I did upgrade it, like I'm paying $50 a month or something like that. But that's still better than.
That's going to be Alchemy, because we have a whole VIP channel. We went through their whole trial process.
Well, we're not talking about just us. We're talking about like the public at large who we want to.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm sort of trying to address that by saying it's different for different audiences. Alchemy is good for people that are running 5 nodes, for example, or like maybe you want to run your own node.
Right. That's true. If you're running 5 nodes, you're not a normal person, I guess.
I think we can do, what would be awesome would be to do cost estimates for like various combinations of infrastructure. So you could end up with like 10 scenarios, including both Alchemy and Infura, including even something like fast confirm activity versus slow confirm activity. I mean, there's probably a bunch of other options. And then the other thing I thought we could do would be some kind of survey to our to sort of a cross section of our stakers, to both collect some. I mean, I think we've done something like this to understand what they need from a like on a technical basis, but it would be interesting also in setting this pricing to get a better sense of what they're using and how much it's costing them. And obviously, like, they're mostly, a lot of them are staking in other networks, so it's not that easy for them to isolate exactly how much they're spending on NuCypher, but it might even be worth doing like a some kind of group call where we discuss this stuff, because it might not be easy for them to put it down on paper exactly how much they're spending, but they can maybe qualitatively point to, oh, okay, because of NuCypher I have to do X, and that would maybe give us a better sense of, as Damon says, the public's requirements and costs.
The public at large.
Yeah, there's just so many facets involved in that. I mean, some companies, have like reserved instances where they like, it's an interesting thought. Like, I don't want to support AWS, but they do a thing where you can say, well, I'm going to run this service for a year, and they'll give you a discount on it contractually, and that could potentially be a way, for some people to deal with it, reducing their costs if they're really that large.
If we spell out these scenarios, like, okay, with XYZ infrastructure, we estimate that it will cost you this much. And then we put it out there in our channels and we say, please criticize this. How much do you think your setup differs from this purely in terms of cost, or also maybe specific choices of services and stuff?
And just
that would go a long way in helping us price this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting the way gas works too. I have to remind myself and other people too that when you're choosing a gas for a transaction, you're really choosing a gas limit for the transaction. So you won't necessarily spend all of that. It's just like, how incentivized are nodes to fulfill your transaction, and you'll get the unspent gas back. So it's more like per transaction, what's the maximum that you're willing to spend. Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics involved there to get that down to something that's really usable. But I think we're closer than ever. I think we can give users, those stakers, more information than the last survey. Like, here are the final numbers. Here's the whole minting schedule. Here's the blah, 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 blah. And they can probably give you some more details that we haven't had before.
Yeah, and like how fast you want it to complete is also going to depend on the downside of it not completing within 24 hours, which depends on our punishments and stuff, and what you forfeit. Sorry to hijack the conversation around costing, but it also, like I said, relates quite strongly to the governance, in the sense that this is probably going to be the first major DAO decision, I would guess, because we're not really wanting them to change like the issuance schedule. So maybe as like an exercise of a genuinely important decision, but also fairly simple to understand. This I saw it in David, in your presentation. I thought it was a really good example of not necessarily something everyone's going to agree on. So I think the more information and communication we can have with them about this, the better, leading up to what is an inevitable vote.
Yeah, I think we need that bulletin sort of platform. I don't know what that is. We talked about it a little bit in a previous call, but like, what is the canonical stage for discourse around voting?
I think it needs some way of discussing which is more permanent than Discord. I really don't think.
No, not Discord, I said discourse. Sorry.
Discourse. Yeah, I think Discord is probably fine. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be on Discord. I don't know what it is. I mean, I really think that bulletins and threads like Reddit and like Hacker News are good for this kind of thing.
Yeah. So people can discuss and see the opinions on other. Yeah, sure.
We could restart the forum.
Yeah, I completely in favor of reinstating the forum for this. At least.
It's a nice gift to the community to just sort of have that and be like, here's where we think that is a good place to start.
Just last question for everyone, which is, given that, I mean, obviously, like the fees are not that important in the first year or 2 years or whatever. People will be much more, it's much more polemical, the issuance rate and things like that. But given that it's sort of a malleable topic, and how do you feel about the medium through which I'm planning to release these notes? Like, where I basically thought about it a lot and concluded that the sort of high level important TLDR information, like this is what the range is, this is how it works, this is how it's enforced, you know, your node will have the default rate if you don't change it. That kind of like very straightforward information should just be another page in the documentation. And then the bit I'm less certain about is there's a whole bunch of reasoning for that, because there's a lot of decisions that we've made there. And they relate to all kinds of things, like, for example, estimating the cost of running a node. For example, like the market rates and competitive rates and competitor rates of key management, and a bunch of also some theories about pricing as they apply to like two-sided markets. And I'm just thinking that can just be in a paper, but I don't want it to, because it's a malleable topic, I don't necessarily want it to seem like a, you know, like a white paper has a sort of permanence to it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Maybe something like the NuCypher documentation, right?
I don't know. It seems like something you want ongoing. Like, does it ever end? You know, like, is it ever finished in your mind?
No, certainly not. And as we understand better who our users are, so I have a, you know, various use cases that have like estimates of user behavior and how that affects the pricing. So like, as I've said before, like if you so there's certain use cases of NuCypher where above a certain per policy per period price, it just becomes completely unworkable. And it's not because of value perception, it's to do with like how many policies a typical user would create per year and how much value that application could draw from those users feasibly, like within the realms of possibility. So it's kind of that sort of reasoning, but obviously that will become clearer over time.
It's super interesting trying to figure out like what this fits into a governance model. You know, it sounds kind of like it's just a part of a regular publication where it's like, well, people sort of have the contextual understanding that it's one of a series and it's like an editorial, or like not editorial, but like a, you know, a scientific publication that's like for, you know, consumption rather than for like specification, if you get me.
Yeah, for sure. So we have a specification, which we just need for people to refer to. And then I'll try and think of some other way to put this like material down so that when they're thinking about this problem, at least they're considering all the different factors that are relevant to pricing a product. So we can have both, I think.
Yeah, totally. I think that works. I mean, I don't know what I'm feeling a little bit out of the loop with what everyone's doing sometimes, but you know, this sort of seems like I would love if some people were like blog posting about like, you know, potential proposals or issues or network architecture and kind of that kind of stuff. And there could be like, you know, people in our team doing that would contribute to the discourse around voting to sort of help inject goodwill.
Yeah, for sure. I'd be disappointed if there isn't a post on our forum by someone in the team or someone outside that like criticizes the hell out of what I've put down as my reasoning, and then, you know, and that would be very helpful to sort of moving the conversation and you know, coalescing around some understanding of what you know, what this service should cost, basically.
Is there a forum established? Where can I look?
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff in like Google Docs, which is not great, but I'll put, like I said, I'll make a PR for the documentation bit, and then I'll just refer to like the rationale so you can read up on that. But yeah, I think we should all think about where like this living discussion should be. I think that actually would help me a lot. If it is a forum, then I can kind of shape what I'm doing to fit that a bit better. Otherwise, it could be, like I said, alternatively, it can be a paper in our white paper repo, which is, we kind of had this plan to have these various papers. They don't have to be extremely formal, but they're kind of at least categorized by, umbral, staking economics, etc. Fees and pricing. There's like 5 others that we had in mind.
Thanks, y'all. Sounds like lots of people are dropping off now. It was probably a little bit a little organic, as David said earlier. This call, the way this call went.
Okay, so thank you for listening to my PRs. If you have any comment, just let me know. I'm also very interested, of having someone else also getting interest on the DAO stuff. Just to have a second pair of eyes over there. Just reminding that. Anyway, I think we can finish, right?
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.